Lesson 1.2. In this lesson, we're going to talk about solving multi-step equations. In the last lesson, we did equations with one step. We know we got to do the inverse operation to both sides to undo things. And now what happens if we have more complicated equations? Well, we're going to start off with working with some geometry. And we're going to find some equations using geometry. So, we know an important property here, and that property is that the sum S of the angle measures of a polygon within sides can be found using this formula right here. S equals 180 times n minus 2. Okay, so we're going to write and solve an equation to find each value of x. Then we're going to justify the steps by showing our steps, and we're going to find the angle measures of each polygon when we're done. All right, so we want to write an equation here. So we're going to start off here. We got our triangle. So remember, n is the number of sides. So for our triangle, n equals 3. And so we're going to keep that in mind when we use this formula here. This formula from up above, S equals 180 times n minus 2. So the sum of the angles. Okay, so we got to start out here talking about the sum of the angles. All right, well, our angles are 30, so that's our first one we want to write down. Our next angle is 9x. Remember, x is just a number, so 9x is just some other number. We've got 30 plus x. So those are our three angles. They're expressions for the angle. Now that says those are all the angles added up. Well, how many degrees is that going to be? Well, we could go figure it out, but let's just write out what the formula says. The formula says 180 times n minus 2, but we know what n is. Again, don't try to go too far here and do a bunch of side work. Just write out what it is. We have 180 times n. Well, what is n? N is 3. So we have 3 minus 2. There you have it. Again, don't do a bunch of side problems. Just keep it all together. Now we're ready to go. We have some steps when we're solving multi-step equations here. The first step is to simplify. So step 1, simplify both sides, which means we want to combine like terms. Simplify. All right, so combine like terms. We got nothing to distribute here, so don't worry about distributing. These parentheses can just be erased in our mind. They're gone. Okay, so we have 30 and 30. That makes 60. We have 9x plus x. That makes 10x. And then we can come over here to the right side and we can distribute. Oh, actually, we don't need to distribute. Well, what is 3 minus 2? It's 1. So we have 180 times 1, which is just 180. And we kind of already knew that the angles in a triangle added up to 180. That's what we just found out there. And now we've got a more simple equation. Both sides are simplified. Okay, so step 1 is to simplify each side. Then step 2 is to isolate the variable. We can say isolate. We want to get it all by itself. Isolate the variable. Well, can't spell here. Isolate the variable. All right. So let's isolate the variable. So we want to get this 10x all by itself. So we got to get the 60 out of there. So let's get that 60 out of there. We've got 60 is a constant. The 10x is a variable. And now we got a simple equation. 60 minus 60 is 0. 180 minus 60 gives us 120. So let's get that 10 out of there. It's multiplying, so the inverse operation is divide. And so x is 12. All right. So we found out what x is. We're almost done now. The second part of the question was to figure out the measure of each of the angles. Well, that's 9 times x is going to be 9 times 12 for this angle here. And 9 times 12 is 108. So that angle is 108 degrees. And the last angle up top here is 30 plus x. So we have 30 plus x. That's going to be 30 plus 12, which is going to give us 42 degrees. Okay. And so we got our angles, 108 and 42 and 30. And we can do a quick check and see that 108 plus 42 plus 30, those are three angles, do equal 180. That checks out. Okay? So, now, that's the idea. Go ahead and try the same thing. We're going to write an equation like we just did. So pause the video here and try the next few problems there and see what you can come up with. Try B, C, D, and E, and F there. Okay? Again, don't pre-think the problem. Just write out the equation here, all your angles, and 180 times n minus 2. See what you come up with. Here's our equation for this next one. Here we've simplified both sides. And now we solve it, and we get x equals 50. Then we can go ahead and plug in 50 for both of the x's, and we get our two angles, which are 70 and 60, which add those up with 50, and it makes 180. Keep going. Now for this next one here, we have n is 4, so 180 times 4 minus 2. We'll work that out. And we can find out that x is 65 by solving the equation. And we plug 65 back in, and we get our angles of 50 given to us, 65, 150, and 160. So we can now, we can add up all of our expressions, and they have to equal 180 times 4 minus 2. Solve the equation, we get x equals 75. Now let's find the angles. So we get 75, 117, 110, and 58, which all add up to 360. Now we've got a pentagon, 5 angles. Let's write our equation. Kind of a long one, but we got all of our angles here. 5x plus 2, 3x plus 5, 8x plus 8. All of these angles here add up to 180 times 5 minus 2. Well, let's clean it up by putting all the x's together, all the constants together, and simplify this side. Adding all the x's up, we get 10, 18, 25x. Adding all the constants, 2, 5, 8, 15, that's 10, and 30, 30 and 40. And 180, this is going to be 180 times 30, which is 540. All right, so let's subtract. 25x is 500. And so x, well, let's see, that's going to be 4 for every 100. So 4 times 5 is 20. Okay. So now we've got that. We can find all of our angles here. And so we have 4 times 20, which is 80, plus 15 gives us 95. Here we got 8 times 20, which is 160, plus 8, which is 168. Here we've got 3 times 20, which is 60, plus 5 is 65. And we've got 5 times 20, which is 100, plus 10, that's 110. We've got 5 times 20 plus 2, which is 112. All right, so we found all the angles. Now you try the next one. Little note here is that 3x plus 16 is representing both of these. That's why there's 2 arrows. So putting it all together, we get 2 times 3x plus 16, or if you want to write it out twice, you can. And we've got 2x plus 8 and 4x plus 18, 2x plus 18, 3x minus 7. All these angles, notice there's 6 of them. So, whoops, I made a mistake here. Not 4, but 6. Let's make that a big ugly 6. Okay? So we have this side becomes 180 times 6 minus 2, which is 180 times 4, which is 720. Now we got to be careful here. And it might be good to write all this out here. We've got to distribute in this case. Okay, so we've got 2 times 3x, that's 6x. And so we have 6x, 2x, 4x, 2x, and 3x. Since there's so much, let's write it out there. We've got 6x, okay, plus the 2x, plus the 4x, plus the 2x, plus the 3x. Then we've got the 2 times the 16, that's 32. And then we've got 8. And we've got a minus 18. So this is going to be plus, I'm going to write plus a negative 18. And then we've got plus an 18, this guy right here. And then we've got plus a negative 7. Or just a minus 7 if you want. Okay, all the x's will come out to be 17x, and these two 18s are going to cancel each other out. We've got 32 plus 8, that's 40, minus 7 is 33. And we have the 720 from over here. Okay, so now we can solve it. Take off the from both sides. So something didn't come out right. Did you see my mistake? Right here. That's a 25. So this should be a 25. So this should be a 25. And so we get minus 40. Okay. This all comes out to be 40 because I messed up on that 25. Okay. And so our constants come out to be 40. Take off 40, and that gives us 680. Got it? Hopefully we didn't goof you up there. And so x is 40. Okay, and last but not least, let's find our angles and be done with this. So we plug in 40. 2 times 40 is 80 plus 25 would be 105. Here, 4 times 40 would be 160, minus 18 would be 142. You can use your calculator for that, that's fine. Over here, we have 3 times 40, that's 120 minus 7, so we get 113. These two angles come out to be 3 times 20, which is 3 times 40, sorry, which is 120 plus 16, which gives us 136. And last but not least, these angles up here give us 2 times 40 plus 8, which would be 88 degrees. Okay. We actually have two 136s up here because there's 2 of those angles. So there's our angles. 113, 105, 142, 88, 136, and 136. Good work.